Enterprise DNA, and I hope you're enjoying this Enterprise Analytics Summit. Thanks for joining this session today. I'm really excited to talk about this. This is not what I had originally planned on presenting on, but I ended up getting really in deep on this and doing some posting on LinkedIn and finding out there was a lot of interest. So what I want to talk about today is something called the Elgato Stream Deck. And it's something I found out about from a poll that George Mount conducted. And the poll just said simply, do you have a Stream Deck? And at that point, late last year, I didn't even know what one was. So I answered no, but I was intrigued. And so I ended up getting one for Christmas. And it originally sat around for a little while because I just frankly didn't know what to do with it. So I, again, went back to LinkedIn, posted on it, asked some questions, and really started getting an understanding of what this thing could do. And for those of you not familiar with it, it's basically just a programmable macro keyboard. And you can see on the left-hand side is all the models that are currently available. And on the right-hand side is my setup. And you can see I've got the 15 key model, which is the one I would recommend. And it just shows in scale relative to my keyboard, and then a close-up of one of the screens. So you can see kind of what that looks like in detail. But originally this was intended for video streamers. And so it was intended to control camera, control on-screen effects. It's got some sound effects. You can use it as a soundboard. And that is not super interesting to me. So I started exploring what else you could do with it. And what I found is it's an incredible automation tool. And I started thinking about, could this really be used to automate Power BI in an interesting way? And what I found is the answer is yes. And I hope you'll come to the same conclusion at the end of the session today. But what I found was it's really an incredible combination of kind of your web bookmarks, Windows shortcuts, program snippets, Power Automate Desktop, and a lot of other organizational and automation tools that you can integrate together into a common interface. And so, just to be clear, I have no association with Elgato. I just think this is an awesome product and wanted to explore with you kind of, if you've got one, how you can maximize its use for Power BI. And if you don't, maybe encourage you to take a look. As I said, there are 4 models currently. There's a mini that is not worth getting. It's not gonna have enough keys to really be useful. There's the 15 key model, which, as I say, I would recommend, because even though it's 15 keys, you can program it in a way that we're going to talk about today that extends that almost infinitely. I think I've got over 300 keys programmed on mine to date, and with more kind of getting added every day. There's a 32 key model. And then interestingly, there's one that you can get for $3 a month. It's called Stream Deck Mobile, and it lets you use your phone or your iPad as basically a version of the 15 key Stream Deck. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the types of actions you can automate using your Stream Deck. We're going to talk a lot about how you organize your information, because that determines how efficient it's going to be in terms of accessing the information you need and the automation that you need. And there's a number of different ways that the software gives you to organize, and there are better and worse ways to do that. And so we'll talk a lot about that. I'll show you the use of plugins to expand the capabilities. We'll talk a bit about icons and aesthetics, how to get your setup to look good. And then if we have time, I want to delve a little bit into some advanced scripting capabilities. That this has pretty remarkable scripting possibilities, both through a plugin called Super Macro, and then also, if you're familiar with a separate scripting automation language called AutoHotkey. It's an open source language that's been around for about 20 years. and you can actually link auto hotkey to Stream Deck buttons to really expand the range of automation possibilities. So we're not going to cover that specifically today. That may be another session down the road. But what I wanted to do first was just to give you a quick sense of what you can do with this. And I'm just going to run you through mine. And what I want to do is I want to show you the software first. Since this is the way you program the Stream Deck, and what it'll also do is it'll show you on screen what I'm doing on my deck at the moment. And so this is my top level screen for the moment. I'm kind of modifying it in a continuous way as we go. And I've left a blank here for stuff we're going to program up today. But what I've got is I've got a kind of an assortment of capabilities on the top level. And you'll see here, this says default profile. And so this is what it defaults to when the system comes on. And what I've got is in this first button is it's called Ideas. It opens a notepad file that I use just to write down ideas for videos, for LinkedIn posts, for just potential webinars and seminars and other things. These top ones are app launchers. So these will launch my Windows apps. The next one down, Explore, is a folder button, and this drills down into just a set of common folders that I use. Then I've got my email and calendar. This is a separate folder that drills down into just some login information because you can have Stream Deck enter text for you. And then this is where it gets interesting. These are profiles, and in Stream Deck, profiles are kind of the top level of organization. And what they are, profiles are kind of groups of common functions. And so what I've got here is I've got a Power BI profile, and you can have an infinite number of profiles. And we're going to get back to the Power BI profile, but I just want to show you quickly the other ones. So this is a Zoom profile. And then what I've got here is a drill down into my webcam, so I can control that. And so now if we go back up, what I've got here is something called HW Info, which monitors all the key metrics on my computer hardware. Then I've got a Windows profile, which just is a bunch of shortcuts and tools to magnify screen and move windows around. And finally, I've got something called Skunkworks, which is just the way I test new functions. I kind of isolate them in this profile until they're either ready to move to a full profile or get deleted. So let's jump into the Power BI profile. And what I've got here is this is the top level. And I've got 5 tools, kind of my favorite external tools that I use. And we're going to save these for later because these involve a little bit more advanced scripting. But then what I've got is each of these are folders. So I've got a folder for M. And then in the M, what I've got is I've got code snippets. I've got the M code formatter, the Microsoft reference guide, and then just a series of websites that I find really useful in either as reference or as additional code snippets or problem solving. And then similarly for DAX, same thing, the external tools up top, a bunch of code snippets just to enter in kind of quickly measures and functions that I use frequently. Website reference. I've got a PDF reference. This is Hank Vlutman and Michael Rosema's Extreme DAX book that I happen to have in PDF that I refer to just by clicking a button. This is the SQL BI DAX formatter, and then a super macro to actually implement the DAX formatter. Just moving through quick, I've got a whole series of Deneb resources. guides, YouTube channels, and then a Power BI sample from Daniel Marsh-Patrick that goes through a bunch of examples. And similarly, same thing for the HTML CSS viewer from Pascal Kiefer and K-Team Solutions that I use a lot, and Zebra BI as well. So some of their example tools and partner portal and templates and YouTube channels, and then also the IBCS standards. And then what I've got at the bottom, I've got similar resources for R, just some other tools that I use frequently, a series of databases, so Data Hub, which I like a lot for sample data, Kaggle, data.gov, and the Enterprise DNA resources. And finally, the Atomic Function Challenge that I built to basically go through on a daily basis the M and DAX functions in kind of learning mode. So that's the overview of my my Stream Deck. As I say, I continue to build that out on pretty much a daily basis as I find new resources. But let's jump in and start to build this ourselves. So what you want to do is you want to go to an empty key, and as we talked about, the way you'll organize your information, or the way I recommend organizing your information, is to start with profiles. So profiles being that top level organization, and then within profiles you can have folders, as I showed before, like my Deneb folder, which drops down, is almost like a drill down in Power BI, or a drill through in Power BI. You can also have pages, which I kind of think of folders as going vertically through, pages going horizontally across. I typically try to avoid multiple pages. I find it a little awkward in the navigation. I typically tend to go kind of vertically through the organization. So tending to rely primarily on profiles, drill through, and then buttons. So let's start here. So what we want to do is we want to go up to this key here, and we're going to create a new profile. So we click on this profile one, and let's just call this demo. And we'll close that. And then what we want to do is in the software on this right hand side are all the different functions that the software has actions for. And there are some base ones, the Stream Deck one and the system ones come with the program, and then you can add a bunch more in with plugins that we'll talk about later. But these here for Stream Deck and for system are the main ones we're going to use. And so what we want to do for a profile is you want to just click and drag that switch profile, and then this is your information screen for the button. And what you can do here is there's an option for profile. You can either say next profile, in which case what it'll do is it'll cycle as you hit the button multiple times, or you can assign a particular profile to it. And in this case we're going to assign the demo profile, and we'll just call this demo. And then you also have the ability to assign icons in a whole series of different ways. The program comes with kind of a large series of icons. You can add more in through the store and the plugins. This is not typically the way. These I think are kind of boring. You can create your own. It's got a create new icon. That is very time consuming, and so what I tend to do is I tend to set mine from file, and that is the option down here. And what that'll do is that'll go into your icon directory, and you can save and create icons. What I typically do is, for a program, is I'll pull that off the program website, or in cases where I don't have a particular icon, what I'll do is I will go to, I use a site called Flat Icon, and let's just search for demo here. And we've got an icon here for demo, and let's download that. And we'll just move that into our icon folder. Okay, and so now we can go back and just assign that profile to our demo icon. And here we go, demo. So now we've got a demo profile set up with a demo icon. So before we start building out this demo profile, I want to show you one of the really valuable things about profiles, and one of the reasons why it's best to use profiles as your top level organization. So if we go into setup here, and we have our demo profile clicked on, there's a switch right here that says Stream Deck will automatically switch this profile when Stream Deck app window is closed and the following applications in the foreground. And what this lets you do is this lets you automatically switch. So what we can do is we can choose Power BI Desktop here, and it says we've already got one. So let's pick let's say we're going to go with Teams. But what you can do is you can assign a program to a profile, so that when that profile is open, when that program is opened, it'll automatically switch to that profile on the Stream Deck. So really convenient if you're building out things like a Power BI profile or a Zoom profile. So now let's go into this profile, and let's click on it on the deck. And what we're going to see here is this welcome screen, and this is a button that Elgato just puts on by default, which takes you to their site and to the instructions for using the Stream Deck. We can just hit delete on that to clear that out. Now, the first thing you want to do when you're building out a profile is you want to add a navigation button to take you to the default screen where you've got your other profiles, or else what's going to happen is you're going to basically paint yourself into a corner and get trapped in this profile with no way out. So what you want to do is go back up here, search for profile, and go to that switch profile and drop that in. And I always put it in the left lower corner, and what I do here is just assign this to my default profile, and then just use a standard home icon that I've downloaded. And I just need to find that. Here we go. So this is the one I use. And now we won't get trapped. We can always take this button and bring us right back to our main screen. So we go back into demo, and now we can basically do anything we want. We've got all sorts of options here under System, under Stream Deck. So we can link to a website, we can open a program, we can add text, we can create a folder. There's a thing called MultiAction and MultiAction Switch, which lets us combine different actions into a single button. And then there's some advanced buttons that we can access through plugins. But let's just take a basic one here. One of the most common ones I use is website. So we'll just drop that on here. And then it really becomes kind of a fill in the blanks exercise. So what we do is, let's say we're let's say we're using Deneb and we're going to Carrie Kolosko's excellent blog on a regular basis, and we want to tie that to a button. So we just copy the URL, we paste that in the URL section, and we go and pick our icon that I've already set from a file. I've just pulled this off of her blog site with a screen cap and a little bit of text. And so we don't even now need a title because we've got that right on the icon. And so if we just click on that, it'll take us right into her blog site. So that is cool and convenient. So back in here, what we can now do is we can open a program. And one of the really useful things you can do with this is not just open an app, but you can open a specific file on the app. And let's say in this case we want to open a Power BI file that we use frequently. So let's find one of those. Financial reporting. So here's a good one that Sam put together on financial reporting in Power BI, and it'll automatically take and kind of guess at the title. You can then edit that. To fit the button, and then if you drop down here, you've got all sorts of options for where you place the text on the button, the font you use, point size, rich text formatting. What I've generally found is Arial 7 shows up very clean and clear. Bigger than that, you start to run into space problems. Smaller than that are kind of readability issues. So if we take this, and now we can just go back in and set our icon from file, and let's find our Power BI icon. And now when we click on this, it's just going to fire up Power BI and then load that file directly. So this is a great way to kind of organize and access your most used files. So the next thing I want to show you is how to add code snippets. And we just start by dragging the text action into a button. And then I've got just a brief DAX measure that I can paste in here, and we can title that just simply top 5. And there's a bit of a warning about DAX measures to be used as code snippets, and it's based on a quirk in the DAX editor, which is that in entering this text, if you use either a hard return or a shift hard return, when it automatically enters that text in with the press of a button, the DAX editor is going to read either of those returns as enter. And in the DAX editor, that accepts the code. So all you're going to get if you automate this button in the DAX editor this way is top 5 equals, and then it's going to hit return and it's going to accept that code. And there's 2 ways around that. One of which is you can basically enter your DAX measure without any hard returns, just all on one line. And then what you can do is format it using the Analyst Hub formatter or the SQL BI DAX formatter, or a macro in a C# macro in Tabular Editor. The other thing you can do is actually do your DAX measures in Tabular Editor, where enter is not a code acceptance key, and so you can actually have it automate by just hitting that text button, and the whole measure will enter with hard returns intact. So that's just one warning about using code snippets for DAX. Now for M or for C# or R or Python, it works great. So you don't have to worry about that. It's just a quirk of the DAX editor. So the next thing I wanted to show you was folder And all we have to do here is just drag over create folder, and what that'll do is create this folder icon. We can add an icon to it or just keep it as that folder. And let's say what we want to do here is let's say we want to create some M-code snippets. So we just enter that, and now when we click on that button, it's going to drill down into a separate screen, and it's going to automatically put this up arrow button to get us out of there rather than stranding us on that page. So the other thing I like to do in this case when I'm drilling down into a folder, if I have room, is in this lower left hand corner is to add that navigation button, so that instead of drilling up, what I can do, and this is what you can always do with your Stream Deck buttons, is you can just hit Control C for copy, go down to the screen you want, and then just hit paste, and it'll paste a copy of that button with all the associated commands. And so this is nice because what you can do is when you're in the folder now, you can either drill up a level or back out to your default page. And so the last thing I wanted to show you in terms of kind of the basic actions is what's called a multi-action. And I've got one set up. Let's go to Power BI M-code, and let's copy this extended date table. This is one I actually use quite frequently. And we'll just Control C, and we'll go out to our demo measure, our demo profile, and into that folder. And we'll just hit paste. And let's take a look at this one, because this one is different than the others. That what you see here is just the label, and then you see content, 4 actions, and an arrow. And if we click that arrow, now what you've got is you've got it basically branching down into separate actions. And so what this multi-action does is let you string actions together into kind of one cohesive button press. And so what this is doing is this is opening our extended date table code, and this is just code that we've got loaded, and I can hit this. I think I can click on this and have it execute. No, you can't execute within the context of a multi-action, but basically this will open a text file that sits on the desktop. Then what you want to do is you want to often add a bit of a delay in here, and in this case it's 2000 milliseconds or 2 seconds, and that is just so that it gives the computer a chance to open the file fully before executing the next command. And there's no hard and fast rule about you just drag this delay action into the multi-action sequence, and you just have to kind of experiment with how long those are. That once you get them right, though, you can just kind of continue to use that same delay for your computer. And so this is quite a fast computer, and so what it does is without the delay, it'll run through this sequence before everything has a chance to load up. So it loads the text file. It then takes a slight delay. Then it takes a hotkey action, which we just have select all, Control A, and then a hotkey copy, Control C. And so what we can do is now go up here, and if we hit the extended date table button, we'll see the sequence in action. So it pops open Notepad, it loads the extended date table, it selects everything, and then it copies it. And so now if we're in Power BI and we go to our financial here, and we are in Power Query, and let's create a blank query. And you would typically do this before triggering the button. But let's do this. And now all we have to do is go into the advanced editor and paste that in. So that's always accessible, just at the press of a button, and then you just go where you want it to paste and just hit paste. And we could, if we wanted to, we could automate that whole sequence. I'll show you in a minute why that may not be the best idea. So that's multi-actions. And now the next thing I wanted to show you was plugins. So we've gone through the main system actions here. There are some multimedia actions that, if you're interested in streaming, you can control volume, you can control mute, next track, previous track, etc. But generally speaking, we've covered the ones that I use for Power BI, with the exception of Super Macro. And what you want to do here is go into the Stream Deck store and go to plugins, and there's a whole series of plugins, and these are worth looking through. There's some good stuff in here, but let's just look at Super Macro. Okay, and this says simulates both keyboard and mouse, advanced functions and variables. And I've already got this installed, but typically you would just click install, and what it'll do is it'll add Super Macro and all of its actions to your right-hand side menu. And so we add that, and then we exit out of here. And now what we can do is we can load this in, and Super Macro works very, very similar to multi-action. But what it's got is it's actually got a whole command language. And if you go to the wiki, and you can just Google this, but it's got basically keyboard commands, and the scripting language around that. So basically how you simulate key presses for anything. It's got how you simulate mouse clicks. And one of the things it's got is it's got a tool called mouse location that you can drop into your Stream Deck. And I want to show you this because this is quite important if you're going to be doing anything that involves simulating user actions. And so I believe I've got this. Yeah. So it's right down on the bottom row here that says press to start. And what this does is, if you watch the numbers as I move the mouse around, it tells you what the X and Y coordinates are. And there's a function within Super Macro that lets you place the cursor anywhere on screen based on those mouse coordinates. And if you hold this for a long press, what it'll do is it'll copy those coordinates to the clipboard. And I want to show you what I've done with regard to the external tools in Power BI, because this is an important distinction. And so if we go to Power BI, we could trigger the external tools using an open command. The problem with that is that if you were to open it directly, like open DAX Studio directly, you're not going to have it load with the file. And so what you want to do is you want to simulate the user experience of going to the external tools menu. And let's say we want to click on Greg Deckler's Microsoft Hates Greg quick measure program and external tool. And we want to do that in a way that's going to load the current file in. So what we do is, I've got that button programmed using Super Macro, and we just hit that button and it simulates the button press and the mouse click and the mouse movement. And so what we see here is we've got it loaded with the proper the proper file. And let me show you how that's done. So if we go here and we click on the Meshkukum button, what you'll see here is mouse XY 460, 50, and that is the mouse coordinate that gets you up to the external tools menu and clicks on that. And then the second sequence is what gets you to the external tool you've picked, and then mouse clicks on that. And so if I were to send you my profile, unless you have the exact same configuration of external tools, this is one case where my profile command is not going to work for you, because this is based on the actual position on screen. But if you look at the scripting, this is pretty easy. So basically, you just move the mouse to the coordinates, you click on the left button, and then you release the left button, and then you move to the tool you want to pick on the external tools menu, hit the left button, and release the left button. And so you can simulate really any user action through this. But this is a simple one that works really well in basically getting one of them set up, and then all you have to do from that from that point forward is change the second coordinates. That the first coordinates just trigger the external tools menu, so that's always going to remain the same, and you just basically use that mouse locator to find the XY for the second set of coordinates. And so there's a lot more you can do with this. I don't have time to cover right now, but again, maybe that's a segment for another day. But if you look down here, there's advanced commands. You can save position. You can capture stuff in the clipboard. You can pull stuff off the clipboard. You can set variables. There's a lot of sophistication in this. And as I said, if Super Macro doesn't give you what you need, the other thing you've got available is the program called Auto Hotkey. And this is a super advanced scripting language, open source, and what you can do is you can create auto hotkey scripts and then just link those to your button using a hotkey action. So that is an open door to basically any type of scripting you want to do. You can trigger Power Automate flows. You can move windows. You can grab window focus. With that, there's just an almost unlimited amount you can do in that. So let's see. So I think at this point that's pretty much it. If you kind of go back through now, looking at these with fresh eyes in terms of what we've learned about profiles, folders, buttons, and then actions within those, I think you'll find that it's pretty straightforward creating this. It can be a bit laborious in terms of if you want to create custom icons for each thing, and you want to create kind of extensive resource libraries. But I think it's really worth doing, and I'm finding already in executing this that it's been a huge time savings for me. I no longer am kind of rooting around for tools and license keys and logins and YouTube addresses. So I hope you find that useful. Really be interested to hear people's thoughts who've got a Stream Deck and whether they've found other uses for it that I've not identified. And if not, if you haven't got one, kind of what your thoughts are and how useful you see this to automating Power BI or other processes. So at this point, I think I'll cap it off there and take any questions that you've got. So thanks, and let's roll into questions.